the topic today that we're going to talk about is the importance of electronic bound books. And, even though we're going to use our software to demonstrate what we do, I want to make sure that, we stick to the topic of this webinar and not just be self-serving. So let me just talk some generalities, and then we can go into a little more detail. First of all, this is Ezra Weinstein. I'm the CEO of Coreware. With me, the other person that's talking is Aaron Weinstein. He's my son, and he's our Chief Operating Officer, my right-hand man. And basically, Coreware specializes in providing software for the shooting sports industry. We've got 2 lines of software. We've got a point-of-sale system with all the features that any shooting store needs, any firearms dealer needs. And that includes, of course, the bound book, which is the main topic today, and it includes full inventory control and point-of-sale, of course. And then we also have an e-commerce solution. So if you're a Corestore user, Corestore is our point-of-sale solution. Core Shop is our website solution. And Core Shop is, it's not geared actually for every dealer, every firearms dealer, because we're a bit of a high-end solution for our e-commerce. So we also integrate into AmmoReady, which most of our customers, that's what they use. So most of our retail customers, their primary focus is their retail business, and then of course they have a website where they need to be able to sell items. For most retailers, AmmoReady is a really good solution. For retailers that need more of a customized website, that's where Core Shop falls into play. So just to help you with our terminology, I know it's confusing, but Coreware is our company name, Core Shop is our e-commerce solution, and Corestore is our point-of-sale solution. You'll notice the theme of core. So we kind of try to stick to that. So let's talk a little about the whole idea of electronic bound books first. And I've been in the industry for 20 years now. I actually started as an independent consultant and worked with a couple of dealers 20 years ago. Of course, I'm a technology person. And then I actually ended up working for Sport South for nearly 18 years. Sport South being the distributor. I think all of you on this call know who Sport South is. And last year, decided to make a bit of a life change. We moved from East Texas to North Carolina and decided to focus on just my own software business, which is Coreware. Coreware actually has been around since 2016, late 2016, but we really started picking up a lot of steam this past year. What I discovered over 20 years with talking to people, Sport South, I had written a bound book solution for Sport South. It was initially called the Firearms Management System, FMS. Now it's, I think, just referred to as the Sport South Electronic Bound Book Solution. And for those of you who are with us today, you may want to make a note. If you're currently using either a handwritten bound book or you're using Excel, Sport South actually offers a free bound book solution. And it has some really nice features to it, if I may say so myself. I wrote the original version, 15 years ago, and it's evolved since. It's not their main focus, but it's a good, solid solution, and it's free. So, if you get anything from this webinar, if you already have an account with Sport South, you can talk to your salesperson or just call their support line. If you want to take a look at their bound book solution. If you don't have an account with them, you can still get a free bound book solution. So I really want to emphasize we're not here to sell you on anything. We're just here to really help educate you and show you what we do offer. But Sport South has a very good, viable, free solution. If you're a small dealer that's not working, with a ton of acquisitions and dispositions. And that leads me to explain why I think it's important to have an electronic bound book. Once I get into our bound book, I'll talk a little bit about, time and errors. So, being able to reduce the time it takes you to process a transaction as well as reduce errors is typically a really good reason to have an electronic bound book, but there's really other reasons for it. The beauty of an electronic bound book, and maybe it's in Excel, the beauty of having it electronically versus writing the information down is that you then have data that you can really act on, right? Because the most accurate inventory that you'll ever have is in that bound book because it's tracking by serial number every item that you've ever purchased and every item that you've sold, every item that you've received in from a trade-in, every item that you return to a manufacturer, everything, right? It's a true inventory system, right? And having something written, again, you're complying with the law, right? From a legal standpoint, and I'm not here to provide legal advice. So let me make sure I put that footnote in. But from a legal standpoint, from an ATF standpoint, you satisfy their compliance requirements by maintaining a book, right? Which can be a handwritten book. So, if you're not going to use that data, whether again, it's in some type of other form, whether it's, in any type of software application, again, it can be Excel. If you're not going to use that data, you might as well be writing it down, right? Now, again, Excel, you can back up, you can, store it in various places. If you have a handwritten book, which we have customers, or we've run into dealers, I should say, not our customers, but we've run into dealers that still were maintaining handwritten books. And that's a practice, that's what I would call, potentially a bad practice, because you can be shut down, right? If something happened to that book, right? If you only have that one book and something happened to it, you spilled a bunch of coffee on it, you've got no backup to that, right? So from a compliance standpoint, all of you on this call have a federal firearms license. And, the most important thing in my mind when you maintain a license is to make sure that you're in compliance with the government, because they can shut you down. So for me, from a compliance standpoint and from being able to take advantage of information, you want to maintain a bound book that's electronic. And again, that can be in many, many different forms. It might be an Access database, it might be an Excel sheet, it might be a third-party bound book solution. There's plenty of good ones out there that you can find. And as I mentioned, if cost is an issue, which again, from my standpoint, it's a necessary cost. It's not even a choice. But if cost is an issue, go for the free version of that. But at the same time, time is money. So when you're looking at a solution, one of the things you want to look at is to make sure that that solution is saving you as much time as humanly possible. So with that said, I'm going to just walk you through, what our electronic bound book does, and we'll just talk in generalities in terms of, how the system works and, really what information is tracked, et cetera. So I'm just going to go right to our bound book module. This is just Corestore. You'll see the modules on the left, and we have various different modules for tracking customers, for tracking suppliers, for entering sales. But really, I'm just going to jump right into my bound book. Okay, so one of the things I think that's important from a bound book standpoint, from an electronic bound book, is that a lot of times you want to maintain multiple books. The reason for that is a lot of dealers, they prefer to separate, for example, NFA items from their regular items. So you want to make sure that you can maintain multiple books. So a lot of dealers like keeping books of their primary items, which are all their handguns and rifles and the typical firearm, but then they would want to separate their NFA or Class 3 items. So as an example, I have 4 bound books set up here. I've got a primary bound book, you'll see right here, with 111 firearms in stock. I've got a Class 3 or NFA bound book with 2 firearms in stock, or silencers in this case. And I've got a service bound book, which I use for work orders. And then I've got an optics bound book. The reason why I have an optics bound book is, again, this is not a requirement, obviously, from a compliance standpoint, but because optics tend to be higher priced and almost all scopes are serialized, some dealers prefer to keep a separate book. I won't call it a bound book, but a separate book of their optic, because I literally can go into that serial number of that optic and see what's going on with it. So again, what you want to make sure is in an electronic bound book solution, you have flexibility, right? And you have the ability to define your different bound books. And the way I define my bound books in our system is I go right here, and I can go into manage bound book. So this is just a menu. In our system, you'll always see this ... menu. We'll call it the 3-dot menu. Almost every screen has one. And you'll see here that I have this manage bound book. And you'll see when I pull it up that this actually shows me the different bound books that I have set up. And you'll notice, not to confuse all of you, I have a lot more than 4 bound books set up, if you notice. And I'll just explain why. So in our demo, we actually have 2 stores. We have a Houston store and we have a Dallas store. So of course, we have bound books set up for each location. You'll notice at the top that I'm currently in our Dallas store. So you want to make sure that, again, if you have multiple stores, that you're able to define multiple bound books and multiple locations, both from an inventory standpoint as well as for a compliance standpoint, because obviously you've got separate FFLs for each location, right? So this is where I would set my default bound books. And you'll notice here that I can define, here's the type of item that automatically feeds into each one of these bound books. So for example, in my Class 3, Dallas, I say, okay, I want suppressors, but maybe I also sell machine guns. So I also want to add machine guns into that, right? So I can define the type of item that goes into a specific bound book. So for example, here, what I really should be doing is saying, okay, all optics goes into the bound book called optics. And I've got a test one here. So again, this is our demo data. So there's always extra information here. But this gives you an idea of how the book itself is set up. So just like a physical book, you may have a physical book for each type of, for your NFA versus your primary versus your gunsmithing. So same thing, I can define electronic books, separate books for each one, and then I can print reports just for a particular book. Now, when I'm in the bound book, you'll notice that I have this green background on the primary. This is just showing me what my current active bound book is. So I can click the Class 3, and you'll notice that I've got, here's my 2 items that I have in my Class 3 book versus here's my work order. So I have 10 firearms right now in stock, and in terms of that are in the book and currently being serviced. So again, I can quickly switch between my different books. It's very easy to do. Now you'll notice if I go back to my primary, right below, I've got some notifications. This is a 3310 notification. I don't need to educate you on what the 3310 is. You probably know it better than I do because you're in the retail business. But basically, our system will identify when there's a potential 3310 that needs to be filled out. And we also, once you review it, this shows me that these two transactions, these two bound book IDs, 167 and 166, basically are disposed to the same individual, and therefore a 3310 should be filled out. Again, you as the dealer, no matter what system you're using, you never assume that the system is 100% right. I don't care what system you use, because again, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're responsible and in full control of your bound book. So in this case, we let you review these transactions. Once you're satisfied, you can just click any of these transactions. It will take you to that bound book record. And once you actually review them, you can click this button and it will fill out the 3310 for you. And you have a chance to review it, and then you can either print it out or download it and email it. The bound book itself is right below our alert section, and you'll quickly see that I can do a few things here. Again, the beauty of having something electronic that's not handwritten and not in Excel, ideas is that you can easily see data. So you can easily search for data, you can easily find data. For example, if I want to see all items in stock, I can just click that status and hit search, and it will show me all the items in stock. If I want to look for a particular serial number, for example, I can just start typing in, and it will start finding any record that matches that. Again, it pulled up two records because I probably have the numbers 444 somewhere in this record as well. But the first record it pulls up will be that record with that serial number. You'll notice over here that it's very much like a spreadsheet. So I can here's all my columns. I've got serial number, status, manufacturer name, product ID, model, type, caliber, acquired date, disposed date. I can actually manipulate those columns. So if I want to turn certain columns off, for example, if I don't want to show product ID because I don't use product IDs, I can do that. If I want to go down and choose UPC code, I can choose UPC code. I can actually drag that field up. So again, it just makes it very easy for you to manipulate data. And that's important with any electronic bound book solution. You need to get to the information very quickly, right? So again, if you've got a call from the ATF and they need a trace, you need to be able to search, whether it's by the customer name, whether it's by who you bought it from, whether it's by the serial number. You want to be able to pull that information up immediately. That's key, right? So again, time is money. So having something electronic that's fully functional and easily to search is very important. So this search box will basically search anything within your bound book. If I'm ready to acquire a new firearm, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. And most electronic systems, they have what they call an acquisition screen, where you can acquire a firearm. Because our bound book lives within our overall system, it's not a third party. So there's other solutions, there's point of sale solutions out there that use third party solutions. We decided not to do that because we felt that a fully integrated single solution is critical. And what I mean by that is that I don't have my bound book separated from my inventory system. So what we've seen in the past, we've seen some systems out there, and it makes it really difficult for us to convert data when the two systems, the bound book system is not the same system as the inventory control system, right? And why that's important, and we've even seen a system out there that it is the same vendor, but they separate it to where you can't even print a report that shows you this serial number is actually this UPC code. They treat the bound book as something totally isolated, which is not a good idea, because at the end of the day, your bound book is a subsection of your inventory. So when I look up my items, right, I simply need to know that this item is a firearm, and therefore it should have a record in the bound book table, right? Think of tables as spreadsheets. So in my database table, in that spreadsheet of a bound book, I want to make sure that the two are tied together. Why do I want to do that? Because when I receive inventory, I don't want to have to go through hoops to acquire the firearm separately. I just want to receive inventory. So ideally, if you're not running a register, if you're not running an old register, obviously, if you're running just a separate register and ringing people up, the old way, having just any electronic bound book is no problem. But where things become interesting is when you have something that's fully integrated, because it makes your life so much easier. So let me show you the two ways of acquiring a firearm. So I can just choose new record, and I can scan an item or search for an item. If I know the UPC code, maybe I've got a brand new item that I never carried in my inventory. So again, typically, if I've got an item, that I've never had in my inventory, I would type all the information in. Now, the required information from the ATF standpoint is obviously the serial number, the manufacturer, the importer, if there is one, the model number, the caliber, and the type. So those are the base fields that the ATF requires. I don't think I missed any, and Aaron, step in here if I did. So those are the base items that typically are needed. And again, I can set that item up right as I acquire the firearm. But the beauty is when you're running a system that's tied not just to your own inventory, but when you're running a system that's also connected to your website, ideally, you're not having to type a whole lot of information, because you can just paste in or scan in that UPC code. In this case, I'll just type one in. So I'll type in 15813504249. Okay, now you'll notice if I hit enter, it tells me, hey, this item is not in your inventory. You've never seen this item before. So I'll go ahead and hit enter. And you'll notice it immediately is connected to my website, and it shows me, here's the distributors that carry this item, here's the cost of the item, here's their quantity on hand, here's the description of the item, and I can literally just click that button, and now I've just added that item to my system. So you'll notice in this particular example, my fields that are required are in red, and it didn't bring everything quite in. It looks like it didn't bring in the manufacturer, so I can just quickly go here and just type in Mossberg. I can also put in the caliber, 12 gauge. Thank you. All right, you'll notice it even brought in a cost and a default sale price. Again, if you're connected to the online catalog, which if you're using our system, you can get connected to the online catalog, even if you don't have M already, and even if you don't have CoreShop. We actually can connect you to our online catalog, so you don't have to type this information in. Why is this important? It's important because typing information in tends to lead to more errors and tends to take more time. And typically this information should come through, but again, if there's missing information in the catalog, it may not bring that information down. We'll have to check to see why that happened on this particular item, but it's very easy to correct. So now I have this item here, and you'll notice we track more information than the ATF requires, because again, we view the electronic bound book as a tool, not just as a compliance solution. So we let you track action, we let you put in a product ID. You'll see here, I've got an importer name, I've got a manufacturer number if you want to maintain that. From my standpoint, my attitude is always the more information, the better. Hard drive space is not an issue anymore. In this case, you're on the cloud. If you're using Corestore, you're on the cloud and you've got unlimited amount of data. You're not limited by any hard drive space. So we even put the picture of the item. The more information from my standpoint, the better. The one main thing I didn't put in is the serial number. So I need to put in the serial number. So I'll just make up a serial number in this case. So I'll just call this I'm just putting in a miscellaneous number. And again, your serial numbers are typically, they're alphanumeric, obviously. I probably don't need to even mention that. This is your serial number. Now, I can go into acquisition information. This is where I would put in, who did I receive this item from? It can be an individual or it can be a company, right? So if I click individual, I can scan that driver's license. So again, I don't have to enter any data. But I can also say I acquired it from a company. I can search if I already have them in the system, or I can add a new supplier right there. When I add a new supplier, I can search for that supplier by their FFL number. So again, we tie directly into the FFL database. Again, they only update it every quarter, basically. Sometimes you'll get an FFL that maybe it can't find, or for some reason it's not there. And in that case, you can just manually add their information. But if I type in any particular, I'll just choose Sport South in this case, you'll see all the information is filled in. Basically, I've just acquired a firearm and I just hit save. And if you notice, I didn't do a lot of typing. And again, it's going to warn me because I didn't enter my acquisition date. Of course, it will default to today's date. And now I can hit save again. So that's how easy it is. And that's how easy you want it to be in terms of processing a electronic bound book transaction, in terms of entering an acquisition, if you were entering one directly into your bound book. But if you've got an integrated solution, ideally, you're just receiving the item in your receiving screen. And in this case, I'll just choose that same item, 0158 135. So I'll just choose this item and I'll just specify a different all right, so this is my receiving screen. So again, the beauty of this is if you've got a full inventory control system, you're receiving this item in your inventory system. You're specifying your supplier here, so very similar process. But again, at this point, I'm actually in a receiving screen, and you could have entered a purchase order first, but let's say you didn't. So I just received this item from Sport South. Here's my cost, here's my serial number, and I'll hit finish. And at this point, it prints a receiving report for me. I can receive any number of items. I can receive multiple firearms. I can receive ammo. I can receive accessories. I can receive optics. It all goes into one receiving transaction. And guess what? Now, if I go back to my bound book, you'll see that I've got two new items here, two new serial numbers, one that was acquired through our receiving process and one that was acquired directly in the bound book. And again, if you're using Corestore, all you're receiving, you're doing in the receiving screen. So you're typically not going into that bound book directly. You can go into the bound book directly if you're doing transfers. It's probably the most efficient way to do a transfer in and out. And that way it's not hitting your inventory. And that's entirely up to you if you want to do it that way. But that's probably the most efficient way to handle transfer. And what I mean by a transfer is someone bought a firearm online and they're having it shipped to you, or well, that's probably the best example. So then you would just ring that customer up with just a transfer fee, and you would dispose the firearm. You can dispose it directly in the bound book. So I can literally go into disposition, and just like I entered my acquisition information, I can enter disposition. I can scan driver's license if I want to. I can search for an FFL. If it's to an FFL, I can mark this as either an individual or a company. Again, I can just start typing in a name, and you'll see here in this case, I already have their name. I have all the information, and I can just hit the save record once I receive my NICS certification number, and I can enter the next date. So that's how easy it is to manually dispose. Again, on the flip side of that, if I'm using a fully integrated system, then if I'm in my point of sale system, again, all I'm doing is I'm scanning that serial number. If I know that, here, we'll just copy paste. I'll cheat. So I'll go back. I'll just imagine that, and we'll talk about this in a second as far as barcodes, but imagine I had a barcode. So I go back to my sales screen, paste that in, comes up. All I have to do is scan that barcode, and that's it. Scan a barcode, scan a driver's license. Obviously, you have to do the 4473 and NICS check, which we'll talk about in a second, and they're out the door. Again, time is money, and this is where an integrated solution comes into play. Because it's integrated, I can just go here and I can just say complete sale. And that will update my bound book. But you'll see in my situation over here, now you'll see the first two items. Must have done something. Oh, sorry. So I'm looking for our item, but of course it's not showing because it's actually here. I'll choose all. And you'll notice it's disposed. Actually, I typically don't like doing that. I typically, in our system, you can actually set it to where we set you up with a pending disposition. But again, this is our demo data, so someone was probably playing with it and changed that option. Again, when it's pending, that's when I have an opportunity to go in and actually finish up the 4473 and actually perform the next check. If I go in and here, we'll sell our other Scorpion. So we'll go back to the sales screen, scan the serial number, choose a customer. Again, I'm just choosing myself because I know I've already scanned my driver's license. And I can choose payment types. I can do split payments. I'm not here to demo the point of sale to you, but it's very easy to make a sale. And again, time is money, and also it reduces errors. The more I can scan, the less errors I have to deal with. Let's now look at the bound book and let's talk about kind of the next step. So now we have this pending. There's a pending disposition, right? And it's pending because I still need to get the customer to fill out their 4473. Again, we can talk about the workflow a little. You know, a lot of people, what they like doing, they wouldn't do what I did. They would just suspend the sale transaction, and that way they can complete the 4473 process, make sure that the customer is approved, get the next check. The beauty of our system and what you want to do is when you're looking at systems, you want to make sure that you're not changing your business process to meet what a restricted system tells you you need to do. Our answer for our customers is we work with your workflow, you know, however it makes sense for you to work. For example, if you want them to fill out a 4473 first, before you even ring them up at all, you can do that. If you prefer to ring them up and suspend it and put it on hold till they do the 4473 process, you can do that. One of the nice things with our system, and you know, if you're looking at other systems, I think it's important to look at, is make sure they don't restrict you. Let's talk about the 4473 process a little, because that is part, to me, that's part of your electronic bound book. It shouldn't be a separate module that you're paying extra for. It should all be a part of a full solution that you're looking at. And again, just to mention, when I say full solution, so when you look at our system, that we don't sell things in modules. Everything that you see in the system comes with our solution, and we sell our solution at $99 a month, which is far cheaper than many of the other solutions out there. And inevitably, our competitors try to make an excuse that our system lacks in functionality. And I challenge that because we basically have more functionality than pretty much anyone else out there. And I say that with big thanks to our customers. We have over 100 customers that use our system currently. We have some very big customers. We have some very little ones. And everyone helps contribute to our system because they give us feedback. And we listen to feedback. And we don't charge support fee. We don't charge maintenance fees. We don't charge upgrade fees. We're very transparent. And our goal is to provide a good solution to a lot of dealers. That's our whole goal. And we're constantly enhancing, constantly fixing. You know, if you talk to any other company, you know, and they tell you we don't have any bugs, impossible. Software has bugs. Everyone knows how many Windows updates you get. The nature of software is there's always bugs, especially when you've got software that's constantly updated. And we constantly update our software. We're constantly adding features and we're constantly enhancing the system. So let's talk a little about the 4473s. Typically, you would have a certain number of computers, tablet, whatever you want to set up in the store, or if you're an FFL that's operating from your house. Typically you want to give your customer a good experience, whether they're coming into your store, whether they're coming into your house. So again, we basically allow you to run this 4473 on any number of workstations that you want. Basically, this is the electronic 4473 form. You'll see that it's very straightforward. Everywhere with all the questions, we actually have this little icon with the information. So if a customer is confused about a question, we show you exactly what the information is on that question. Make it very easy to go through and fill out the 4473. You'll notice here that at the end, I can actually collect my signature. You don't need a special device, a signature device. We do support one signature device manufacturer right now, but it's just not necessary, right? Because touchscreens are prevalent out there. Every tablet is a touchscreen, and you can get an Android tablet, you can get a Microsoft Surface, you can get an iPad. They all work. And I should also mention, when you're looking at software, when you're looking at electronic bound book solutions, and you may want to write this down, is find out if they are a installable software locally or if they're cloud-based. And everyone has their opinion, but at the end of the day, the reason why you want a cloud solution is because cloud solutions have multiple backups. Cloud solutions are fast. Cloud solutions can run from anywhere. So you could be at home at night checking the sales of the day, checking your 4473s, working on your bound book. You're not limited. You can run things from anywhere. And again, everyone inevitably asks me, well, Ezra, what if the internet goes down? Well, if the internet goes down, the beauty these days is that you have a phone. And not only can you run our software from a phone, so you want to make sure, the second question is, are you mobile friendly? And it's not just a matter of your website being mobile friendly, right? That's a given. 56% of consumers are purchasing online using their mobile devices. You have to. That's not even a question anymore. That has to be. Your website must be mobile friendly. But think about it. What if your tools were mobile friendly? What if your inventory system was mobile friendly? What if your sales system, your point of sale system was mobile friendly, where you can ring someone up right on your phone? It's tremendous power. We're very much a mobile friendly solution. Obviously, your 4473s, you would want a tablet. No one's going to fill out a full 4473 using their phone, unless they have a nice foldable phone, which opens up to a tablet. But other than that, you really want to make sure you've got a tablet or a PC. So cloud solutions is truly the way to go these days. If the company does not have a cloud solution, it typically tells you that they're running on old technology. They can give you all the excuses in the world, but typically that's a sure sign that their technology is antiquated. And to me, that's a red flag, especially these days. Again, we're in the year of 2020. So being able to run your software from anywhere on any device, to me, is extremely important. Price is extremely important. Make sure you're not paying too much. Upfront price, make sure you're not paying too much. Proprietary hardware. If anyone says you need this printer or this system, be careful with that. Yes, we support specific hardware, but we're very flexible, and we provide Amazon links of where you buy the hardware. So we support, pretty much any receipt printer, that's as long as it has either a Mac driver if you're running on a Mac, or a Windows driver if you're running on Windows, any receipt printer. We do support pretty much all of the different barcode label printers, but we highly recommend the Zebra printers, and you've got a lot more flexibility with Zebra. They're a little more expensive, but they're the most reliable label printers in the world and the fastest. So Zebra printers, and we'll talk about barcodes in a minute. And then again, any cash drawer that ties into your receipt printer, typically you can get them for $60 on Amazon. And then you need a really good scanner, right? You want a scanner that can scan driver's licenses. You want a scanner that can scan products, UPC codes. Gift cards, we support gift cards that can have a barcode on them. So you want a really good scanner, but just by the fact that I say a really good scanner doesn't mean that it has to be expensive. So the scanner that we recommend, we support any USB scanner, but the scanner that we recommend from Amazon is $109, and it's wireless. I know of a competitor that sells a driver's license scanner for $500 because they have to provide special setup or something. Again, it's a red flag. It means someone's trying to take advantage of a situation. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Barcode printing, if you're using an electronic bound book, it's essential. You want to be able to print a barcode for your firearm, and I'll show you that as soon as we finish talking about the 4473s. This is our 4473. Again, this is what the customer, your customer, would be seeing. They fill everything out. No, we cannot default things. I know it seems obvious because that's the law, but we've been asked by dealers, well, can't you just fill in their information for them because we just scanned their driver's license? The answer is, heck no, it's not legal. Also, they have to fill out the 4473 on premise. Again, I'm not giving legal advice. This is our understanding of the law. They have to be on your premise to fill out a 4473. They're going to go to a computer or tablet at your establishment, and they'll fill out all this information. So this is, of course, the Form A. And for those of you who don't know, this form is probably going to change significantly this year. You want to make sure that whomever you are working with for your electronic bound book solution, that they are up to speed on legalities and forms, and make sure that they're prepping up for the new forms. The new forms aren't in place yet, but I think they will be towards either the end of this year or early next year. And I don't have up-to-date information on that. So again, with all of this going on with the virus, I'm sure that might change some things as far as needing to do that. So let me go back here and let me switch back to my system. So that's filling out the 4473. So typically in our system, you would have a separate user that all they have access to is that option to fill out the 4473. Okay, so now that we have a 4473 filled out electronically, where do I go to see those 4473s? So that would be right under our Manage 4473. And this is where I can see the latest 4473 that was filled out. In this case, I've got Gabriel here, and I can look at his Section A, but then I can go in and fill out Section B, and then finally fill out Section D, and then I can literally go here and produce a PDF of the 4473. I also want to mention, you as a dealer must obtain a variance letter from the ATF to allow you to only store the 4473s electronically. So that's very important. The software does not receive a variance letter. It is you, the dealer, must work with your ATF agent to obtain a variance letter. So that's very important. So just because we give you the ability to do things electronically doesn't mean that you are legally able to do that. So we recommend that unless you have the variance, you make sure to print out your 4473s. And we make it very easy to do that. And you can do that at any time, but as a best practice, if you don't have the variance letter, you should do it after you complete each 4473. Just make sure you have a laser printer and print that out, or a inkjet, and make sure you print that out. I recommend laser printer because it's a lot cheaper to run. And they're pretty cheap these days. That's my 4473. So now let me go back here, switch back to where I was. So in terms of the Section B and D, so if you'll notice here, this shows me, everything that I'm filling out on the Section B. And this is where I can start my NICS check. Now, in terms of the NICS check, what we do is we try to make it really easy for you to, again, for us, it's all about reducing typing. And that's where, if you are looking for a solution, ideally you want to look for a solution that has an integrated NICS check. Again, NICS, the LEAP system, does not have what we call an API, an application programming interface. So basically, the only way to automate the NICS check is to essentially, I hate to use the word fake, but fake the system to think that it's a human filling out the information. And that's what our solution does, and there's other solutions that basically do the same thing. So our solution, basically, you would just hit start the NICS check. It would take you here. You have to log in. I am not going to go through a NICS check right now, but we'll post a video after the webinar that shows you exactly how the extension works. But basically, you would log into the LEAP system, and you would see, again, typically, you're viewing your browser, so you see all your extensions. but there's actually an extension that we have for the NICS check. You would hit this extension when you're in the screen. It would fill out all the information for you, and then you hit it again. It will submit the NICS check for you, and it will actually write the information directly back to the 4473. So it's just a couple of clicks of a few buttons. And again, we'll post a separate video on how the extension works. I don't want to do a whole leaks check right now, especially based on time. Again, it's fully integrated. So, and our extension currently is available for direct download from us. We have instructions on how to install it. It's not currently in the Google extension store. We're submitting it. However, they're a bit delayed because of all the craziness. We released our extension about 4 weeks ago. We've had customers using it, so it's been used quite extensively. We actually had a couple of our very large customers using it, and their comments to us have been very positive. So it's working really well, and it took us a bit longer than I was hoping to get it all done, but now that it's done, it works great. So again, I've got my section B here, and anything that has a red box around it means that it's a required field. So the system would complain if I didn't fill something out. I went to hit save, but as soon as I fill all this out, I can hit save and continue to section D. And that would take me to section D. And at this point, I can either pull from my existing sales and just fill in this information. Obviously, again, I'm looking at one that we already filled out, but I can also just scan my serial number here and it would fill out all the other information. So once you're done with that 4473, again, of course, it will update your bound book and you can complete the disposition by just going right back to the bound book and clicking your dispose button. So one of the things that we are adding to the system on the 4473, just to let you know, is we are expanding it a bit, and we'll have in this manage screen, let me see if I can actually show it to you. I'm just going to stop let me see if I've got a little preview to show. I know we have some existing customers on the call, so I'm sure they'd be curious to see some of our progress. So again, we're always enhancing things and updating things. So pause my screen for a second. Let me just see if I can pull up another screen that will give you an idea of where we're heading towards. And let me share my screen again.
While you're doing that, quick question just came through. Does the 4473s track delays and Brady dates?
We do. You can actually specify that there is a delay, but we don't necessarily, I'm not sure what you mean by track the delays. And I apologize. I don't know what's the question about the Brady dates. So while we do that, sharing my screen, I just wanted to point out, so what we are doing is, and for some reason my data is not loading here, but what we are doing is we are expanding our 4473 management screen, so you'll be able to track the NICS results. So to answer back that question, as far as if there's a delay, you'll be able to see here on the NICS result that there's a delay, and you can also have a 4473 status, and those statuses would track what records have a delay on them, and then you'll be able to look at just those records that have had a delay. So the answer on that is absolutely, and we're expanding, basically this screen so that you'll be able to archive your 4473s. That way you're not looking at all of them at once, and you'll also be able to track statuses of the 4473. And those updates should be coming as early as next week. So we're constantly enhancing, constantly adding features and functionality to the system. One of the important things I mentioned, to me, the most important thing is, make sure you can produce barcodes, even if you're just for your firearms, because that will prevent errors when you're disposing firearms. It prevents you from errors, when you're taking inventory, and I'll talk about that in a second. So how do I print a label? Very simple. I can choose any bound book record or multiple records, and I can just go to print label, and our labels are totally customizable if you're using the Zebra printer. If you're not using a Zebra printer, we kind of have a default label for you. If you're using a Zebra printer, we actually have all kinds of labels pre-set up. Let me run my little QZ Tray. This is just an application that you download. It's free, but it's what lets us communicate to your printer directly. Typically, it's running all the time. Mine, for some reason, decided not to run, but typically it runs at startup. Once you connect to it, you can actually go in and print, but we can also just I'll just preview. It's not like you'll see my printer. So you can preview. This label is probably one that we were playing with, but basically you can see the label here. We'll print it out for you. I think the company name is a little too long. That's why it's looking like that. So I can obviously fix that by just editing my company name. Basically what we do is you can print a price, you can print your description, here's the bound book ID. You can actually print the serial number of the items. Basically you've got full flexibility on being able to print labels, and you can choose whatever size label you want. So maybe you want to have 2 size labels. You want a big one for your long guns and a small tag for your handguns. You can do that in our system. You can maintain any number of labels that you want in the system. So, in this case, it was a 1.5 by 2.5, but I also have a 4-inch by 2-inch, for example. And I'll just do a preview. I'll ignore that other error. So again, here's a nice bigger label, looks good, has a whole lot more information. And you'll notice here, I chose that serial number that we acquired today. Why are barcodes important? So one thing, of course, I mentioned, you can ring someone out very quickly. You don't have to type in the serial number and, potentially make a mistake. You don't have to select the serial number from a list and again, potentially make a mistake. So scanning is the most accurate way to account for inventory. But here's what's really important. Your business lives and dies by the accuracy of your bound book. You need to make sure you're doing a serial count. And actually, Aaron, we should put this button on the front, not hide it in the menu. Because to me, this is something that should be done on a regular basis. You should go in and literally do a serial number count. Even if you're not counting the rest of your inventory, it's very quick to do a count of your bound book. And all you do is you choose new count and you just start scanning. You scan the first serial number, second serial number, and it will tell you each serial number whether or not it's in stock. So if I scan this item, shows me that one is showing not in stock, because remember, I sold it. So it shouldn't be in my inventory. So as I scan each item, it's going to show me whether or not this item should be in my inventory. And then when I finish, I can actually show what serial numbers are in stock but haven't been scanned. So even if you have 500 serial numbers or even 1,000 serial numbers, you can very quickly take your handheld scanner, take a notebook, take a tablet, take your phone, and count your serial numbers once a month. Now, you can also choose to count only certain manufacturers. So if you have 2,000 firearms in stock and you just want to count your Smith & Wesson today, you can do that. You can choose your manufacturer. But it gets even better. You can get another couple of scanners, or you can use, in this case, we have an Android app, and we will release an iOS app at some point soon. I keep saying that. But we have an Android app, so your phone, if you have an Android phone, can work as your scanner. But guess what? You can use your iPhone too. You can pull up this application on your iPhone, and they have, for $2, or some of them are free, they have keyboard apps that have a barcode scanner in them. When people ask us, do we have an app? Yeah, we don't, but it doesn't matter, because there's already solutions out there to run our system literally just like it is an app. They're called kiosk apps, and we can help you with that. You can very quickly and easily scan items, and guess what? We just added this feature this week. We had a customer who has 2,000 firearms in stock. They decided to close their store. They were running low on inventory, and they decided, to kind of take a little break. They wanted to protect their employees. So they decided it's a great time to do inventory. They reached out to me and said, Ezra, well, what if we have 5 people counting? We added the ability to merge counts now. 5 people, 6 people, 10 people could all be scanning. And then you just merge all those counts together and it will show you what you missed. That's a brand new feature that even my staff on the phone probably doesn't know about. So you can merge counts, whether it's regular inventory item counts or whether it's, so all I do is literally I click this count and I hit merge, and that will merge the separate counts together. And then I can complete that count. We all value time, but we also all value our business. And what is our business built on? It's built on firearms. And what is the most dangerous thing for a firearms dealer? It's not to have an accurate bound book. You're responsible for your bound book. You should be reviewing your bound book. This is where you should be spending time. It's essential. You should be taking your serialized inventory on a regular basis. I don't care how busy you are. That is paramount to making sure that the ATF does not come down on you. When they walk in and they do an audit and they see how accurate you are less likely to have an audit anytime soon after that. When they come up with a bunch of questions because you're not keeping accurate records, you're more than likely to get an audit soon after this audit, and you can suffer worse consequences. So why make it hard for yourselves? And this is exactly why you want to make sure you have some type of electronic bound book. I don't care what the price is, what you pay in rent, what you pay in inventory, what you pay employees, what you pay for your coffee in the morning, all of that's inconsequential compared to the importance of having the proper record keeping solution, whatever one you choose. It's very important, but at the same time, if you choose the right solution, it's a solution that will pay for itself because time is money. Time is money. Errors cost you money. Don't look at your electronic bound book as an expense. Look at it as an investment. Again, I don't care which one you get. Just make sure you get one that does the job properly. One of the last things I want to touch on, so we talked about our electronic bound book, but one of the other things you want to do is make sure that whatever solution you choose has a wide breadth of reports that helps you manage your business better. It's not just a matter of managing your firearm inventory. You want something ideally that manages all your inventory, all under one roof, all under one vendor, all simple to use, all simple and easy to learn, and all at an affordable price and all supported. We didn't talk about support. Make sure whoever you go with has a good support staff. And Coreware, I'm passionate about support. We are growing like crazy. So we've been hiring more people. We're fortunate to be in this industry. We haven't suffered any tremendous slowdowns. So, we keep adding to our support staff and we monitor our support system 24/7. It's important. And, again, everyone's always guilty of, there are times when you can't respond immediately. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're working with a vendor that you can reach, especially if an ATF agent is there and you need a quick answer. Every customer of ours ultimately has my cell number that they can text if for some reason they're not receiving the proper support. And we do have a help desk system, and we encourage our customers strongly to enter tickets because that way we can be held accountable, we can track the history of a ticket, we can see what's going on, we can make sure that answers are being given. So support's paramount. So here's our different reporting, and just within Bound Book, I have a few reports. This is a really good report, our aged firearm report. This will show you all of your firearms that are in your Bound Book that are older than a certain, they've been in stock for, 60 days or more. Why do we care? Because that means maybe these items aren't moving. This item, this Glock, has been in stock for 3 years nearly. I think I should put it on Gunbroker, don't you? So this little gem of a report right here, being able to better manage your inventory. If you have a retail firearm store, what's your biggest cost? Your biggest cost is inventory. So you want to be able to manage your inventory. Again, this is why you want to invest in a system that helps you better manage your business. It's not about just entering transactions. Any point of sale system can do that. I can get QuickBooks and I can get a point of sale system. What it is about is helping you manage your business better, being able to see slow moving items, fast moving items, items that have been in stock for too long, sales trends, purchasing trends. With us, you've got a plethora of reports, and every dealer, probably has their own types of reports that they want to be able to print. We've got tons of reports, right? So every one of these, I've got, various different inventory reports. We just added a new one, our summary by category report. This shows me my current cost and current retail value of my inventory. So again, we have all these different reports. Whatever system you choose, You want to make sure that just because you can enter that data, you want to make sure you can get that data out. And one thing I also want to point out, you'll notice over here these icons. I can quickly export my entire bound book at any time. So that will export it to Excel. So I can just click a button and it will export or print a report. So in this case, I hit the report button. It just takes me right to the bound book report. My export to Excel, we provide you all the data. A lot of electronic bound books, they only provide you with information that satisfies the ATF, even though you're collecting more information. But when you go to export your bound book, it doesn't export all the information. We let you export every piece of data. We also keep data very cleanly. We don't mix the vendor name with the FFL number. They're not in the same field. We separate those. We separate first name, middle name, last name. All that information is separated. So we're very careful in terms of our data. I should mention this. Not all cloud solutions are made the same. A lot of cloud solutions, they put you in what I call the apartment building scenario. Basically, everyone's under one database. With us, every customer is in their own database. It's backed up separately. It's running on 2 different servers. At all times, we have 2 servers that have mirrored copies, replicated copies of your data. It's backed up. We back up 35 days of backup for every customer. I have 35 days worth of backups. So not every cloud system is made the same. You know, a lot of cloud solutions, they put you into one big database. For me, that's a huge no-no because your bound book contains very, very sensitive, private information. So you want to make sure you ask your vendor how your data is stored and can you get your bound book data in totality, everything. Not just the information that they pick and choose to give you. This is your data. This is not their data. So that's really important. And I'm very passionate about that, as you can tell from my tone of voice. In terms of one other thing I want to point out. So this is our bound book screen that we've been looking at. You'll notice here, we tie the bound book right to my inventory screen. So I can quickly jump right into my inventory screen, and this pulls up all my item information, which has a lot more information. So here's a long description, my dimensions, you know, I can track all of this information. It does show me that this item has 2 serial numbers. Remember, we bought this item twice. We acquired it twice. You can enter there's variation information. You can have pricing information, you know, your pricing. We track, you know, your selling price, your cost. You can put in a margin. We'll calculate that for you, the list price, the map price, consignment pricing. So we handle everything in terms of being able to transact consignments, trade-ins, sales, returns, quotes, transfers. Basically, our system is, again, an all-encompassing system. From my standpoint, I think it's important. And what's important also is that you've got only one person to talk to, not 2 different vendors that may end up pointing fingers at each other. Oh, yeah. So there's a few things. So under customers, under items, under suppliers, and under bound book, there is, and I'll just show you the menu option. There is an import option. You'll see there's an Excel import. You can export first to see all the fields that we collect. We will be glad to help out with importing data. I don't know if we're still running a special, Aaron, but we were running a special where we imported data for you. You can do it on your own. The bound book is a little tricky, so make sure to touch base with us so we can at least point you to the instructions. Because again, the bound book is, you know, a bit more complex in terms of the amount of data. You know, if you look, you can just create, you know, you can click that button and it will show you the Excel. Basically, you can follow the template. Not every field is required. And again, you'll probably get overwhelmed with the amount of data that we collect. It's very different from other systems that really track minimal data. We go the opposite way. So we track, you know, a ton of data. I'll just show you really quick, but regardless, we can import gift cards, we can import suppliers, we can import customers, we can import inventory items, we can import bound book transactions, your bound book itself. Depending what system you're running, sometimes we can do a pretty quick and easy import. Sometimes it takes a bit of manual work. Again, it's the garbage out, garbage in scenario. So we've had some systems that I have no idea who designed them, but they're complete garbage. Now, you'll see here, if I go over here in Excel and I expand my fields, you'll see here our field title is up here, and you'll see all of the fields that we track. This is all the item information, acquisition information, the FFL numbers, all the other company name, addresses, zip codes. Again, you'll see as I keep going here, there's quite a lot of data that we can track. And again, there's a few tricky things that you need to know about our bound book import, but you know, we can point you to information, and we can also assist. We'll be glad to assist you with the import process. The customers, very easy to import. Suppliers are very easy to import. Items, pretty easy to import. You know, there's a bit more fields for items. And again, the key is you want to make sure that your bound book has some way of tying to your item list. And what I mean by that is either the UPC, you have a UPC code. So you'll see here, I have UPC code as a field, or your product ID. You want to make one of those. You want to make sure that you import your items first before you import bound book. And then you want to make sure that your import of your bound book for your in-stock items has a way to tie the two together. And, you know, we had a customer, I had a staff of 4 people. We stayed up till 5:30 in the morning typing UPC codes in, because this system that they were running that was fully integrated could not provide us with a link between a serial number and the item. For obvious reasons, we need to tie those two together, right? Because when I'm in my selling screen, I'm scanning, you know, a UPC code, I'm scanning the item, I'm scanning the serial number, but inevitably I'm looking at my inventory side in order to scan that item. So therefore I have to create that link between the two. What other questions can I answer?
Yes, it's Brandy. I have a question. So
Sure.
When receiving from a, like if I'm moving systems into your system, you go back to the receiving screen as far as how to put in your inventory, but then at the end it asks for a payment. So how best is it to bring over, to receive items and not have that payment, or how do I adjust that payment? Because I don't want it to be cash, because then it's going to look like I paid something out or in. How do I rectify that?
Good question. So there's a couple of ways. So if you're talking about how do you receive in your, you know, existing, you know, if you're going to use the receiving screen for starting up, that's, I assume, basically your question. What you can do, so when I go to receive an item, let me just show everyone what we're talking about. So I'll just receive this particular item, and I can put in whatever serial number here. Right, so I have a cost here, and our receiving screen does ask for a payment type. What you can do is you can just set it up so the store account shows, it's in the store configuration, and you can just apply the payment to that, or you can also create a new payment type just called, you know, paid for already. Because the thing is, you still want to bring in your cost, right? Because if you put the cost at 0, the problem is your inventory will show up as 0. So you'll have inaccurate, you know, gross profit reports. So this isn't really a full accounting system or an accounts payable system. So that's why I'm saying you could either mark it as store account, and then you can end up paying the account off, you know, just making a memo that it was paid off, you know, using, you know, a previous payment. You can also just say you paid it by check, right? That it was already, again, paid for, and you can change your receiving date here. If you wanted to backtrack that receiving, you know, to, let's say, a previous year or something, because you've already had this in stock, you can do that too. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was maybe going to get Jason maybe to clarify his answer a little bit more, but he's asking about existing inventory export and UPC codes. Will we have to input UPC on existing items?
No, it's helpful, but no, I mean, that would be a lot of work, right? So if your current inventory doesn't have UPC codes, you should, in theory, have either a product ID, an item ID. You know, typically most systems, I won't say all, but most systems have some type of unique item identifier. Mm-hmm. And as long as you have a unique item identifier, you would use that. And I typically recommend put it in the product ID field, right? And that way your product ID can carry through your bound book. But no, I have items in here that, don't have a UPC, that only have a product ID. So it's not a required field. I mean, if you look, I have a ton of items actually. You'll see here, all of these have no UPC code. So it's not a required field by any means. It is important when you're tying to your website because your catalogs, your distributor catalogs are, whether you're running Ammo Ready or Core Shop, doesn't matter. They're all driven by a UPC code. So eventually you want to try to catch up and get your UPC codes in there, but it doesn't have to be an immediate thing. It doesn't have to be done up front. You can do it over time. Any other?
Yeah, Jason just asked, how do you make a product ID code?
So I get that question asked a lot. What I tell customers, I mean, we don't auto-generate. There is an item ID, right? This is a unique number that is generated by the system starting at 1. But typically, if you don't have the UPC code, typically you do want to create your own unique item product ID. So when you go into your new item, you just give it a product ID. Different people use different, some people just use a numeric, but I have customers that like to use their product ID as almost like an identifier. So they may put in GLK 19M101. I don't, again, it's completely up to you in terms of generating a product ID. Again, in our system, you don't need a product ID. You don't even need a UPC code. So when you're creating an item, you can just put in the name, put in the category, and we generate the unique ID for you. And it's called item ID, and it's basically hidden from the screen. The reason why I'm talking about product IDs and UPCs is when you're importing data, again, we need a way to identify that item within the inventory and within the bound book. So that's where the product ID or UPC come into play. Because if I don't have either of those, I have no way to match the two up. So when you do your item import and then you do your bound book import, I have no way to connect the two. If I have no way to connect the two, then I do have a mess on my hands. Ideally, your system has some type of item ID already in there. But again, some of our customers, they create these more intelligent, what we call product IDs, and that can be an alphanumeric product ID in the system. But it is not required. You can leave UPC blank and you can leave the product ID blank. But again, in our industry, probably about 90% of the items have valid UPC codes on them. And that's something you do want to strive for because, again, it's a universal number it's an intelligent number. A UPC is a 12-digit number with the first 5 characters, I think, identify the manufacturer. I mean, it's an actual universal product code. So at some point, you want to be able to fully take advantage of UPC codes. Because think about it, UPC codes, once you have the UPC code in the system, if a customer grabs a box of ammo, you're just scanning that UPC code. You don't need to create a separate tag for that box of ammo. You can just create a shelf tag, right? So that's the difference. So think about it. If you have a box of ammo and it doesn't have a label on it, as long as that box of ammo is in your system with the UPC code, you don't need a label. So investment in time up front sometimes can save a ton of time on the backside. So you can have a shelf tag for that box of ammo that says $5.99, and then you can just scan it at the register, as opposed to applying a price tag to every single box of ammo when you're not making much money on that box of ammo. Time is money.
If you liked what you see and you're interested in signing up or learning more about Corestore and kind of our ebook solution, you can go to corestore.info, hit the subscribe button, or you can also hit the schedule a meeting up in the top too, if you'd like to schedule another phone consultation or anything else for the matter. Ezra, did you have anything else you wanted to say, or?
No, I just hope everyone found this beneficial. Again, whether you're interested in our system or looking for something else, let us know how you felt about the webinar. We plan to do more webinars and would love to hear any input from our audience. So I appreciate everyone's time. I know time is valuable right now. I keep talking about that. Stores are busy. Inventory is running low, which is good news, but bad news at the same time. I also wish everyone the best of health. Stay safe, and hopefully in the next few weeks, life can resume back to normal. And we're here if you need anything. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.